Well, our father, he started getting more spaced out. He would not come home, he would be out late at work, he would miss dinners, but what really set me off was when he stood up our mother on their anniversary night, where he said, "Hey baby, I'm going to take you out to a real expensive restaurant." Well, my mother was sitting there for 2 hours all by herself, while I'm on the other side of the country at school, so I couldn't do anything about it. Luckily, my brother, the legend that he is, put on a suit and a tie and used all of his allowance that he was saving up for almost a few months to go and meet our mom so she wasn't at a cold table all by herself. Well, guys, we were about to give our father absolute karma for how he's treating my mom, and then we find out some pretty shocking news. The reason that he's been standing us up is because he has a mistress. Oh, it gets deeper than that. He got the mistress pregnant. I've been estranged from my father for the last 10 years, but earlier this week he reached out to me. Apparently he's in trouble and needs my and my younger brother's help. Well, a lot of backstory's needed to understand this, so bear with me. This all started around 10 years ago. At the time, I was 25 and pursuing my master's in marketing, so I was away from home quite a bit. I'd see my mom and dad and brother during the holidays, and I had a pretty good childhood growing up in Middle America. My mom, well, she was a stay-at-home parent, and my dad worked in real estate. Our life was pretty idyllic. Good school, always going on family vacays, and in the summer, perfect middle-class family stuff. It wasn't until I was in high school that I noticed something was, off. My dad's behavior kinda changed over time. He would always be super supportive of us and show up to every event, every graduation, every sports game, etc. But at some point, things started to shift. He'd showed up, but he'd be late. Then he'd start texting at the last minute saying something came up at work. Eventually, he stopped showing up at all. It was very gradual, the decline, and at the time, I thought nothing of it. He said at work things were getting busy because they'd taken on a lot of clients in a short amount of time. And I just accepted that excuse because my dad never gave me a reason not to trust him. I remember that it was my brother's 17th birthday and it was on a weekday, so we didn't want to do anything big. So my mom arranged for us to have a nice dinner at home with all my brother's favorite foods. Of course, Dad was working, so Mom talked and, she taxed him with picking up the cake on his way home. I was home from college at the time, so I was able to help out with the cooking. I remember when we sat down. Mom tried to call Dad, but he didn't answer. That was becoming a lot more common, We decided to start eating without him since the food was dying and he probably would not mind anyways. We got so caught up in talking that we did not notice how late it's become. I remember it was around 7:30, and the bakery was closing at 8. I offered to go down and pick up the cake since it was clear Dad was not coming. I could tell Mom and Mike were very disappointed though, and we still tried to enjoy ourselves, and yes, the cake was pretty good. Dad did not get home until 9 p.m., but Mom refused to talk to him. I was in Mike's room helping him set up the new speaker system I've gotten him since he plays the guitar, when Father knocked. He apologized profusely for missing the dinner, and it felt super uncomfortable. To be honest, on the one hand, we got that he had to work, but on the other hand, it felt like he was putting work before everything and everybody else. He promised to make it up to Mike, and I guess he did. He bought him a new, very expensive laptop, which was another thing he started to do. Whenever he'd miss something, he'd make it up by buying us gifts or taking us to a concert or something. It felt genuine at the time, but looking back, he was just covering his butt, so we would not get suspicious. Another incident happened about a year later. During his and his mother's anniversary, he'd planned to take her to this really nice restaurant in town and give her money to go on a shopping spree. When the night came, I get a call from Mom saying she'd been sitting at the restaurant for 2 hours and Father has yet to show. She'd been blowing up his phone, but he wasn't answering. The waiter staff had taken pity on her and gave her some free wine and appetizers, and this was the first time I'd ever seen or heard my mom cry. I was livid. I called Father and left a long voicemail cursing him out, then I called Mike and asked if there was anything he could do. I was at school halfway across the country, so there wasn't really anything I could do. My brother, the absolute legend, put on a suit, a tie, and met Mom at the restaurant so she would not have to spend her anniversary sitting alone at a cold table. He spent the allowance that he's been saving for years just to pay for their meal. He said that they had a good time when I talked to him later that night, but said Dad would get a piece of his mind when he finally makes it home. I get a call from my father the next day, apologizing for what happened and promising to do better. He said he paid Mike back double what he spent at the restaurant and was going to take Mother on a weekend getaway. The thing is, even though he did not show up, he would always follow through with this, quote, making it up to us stuff. Mike did get his money back. Mom did get her weekend getaway, and he kept getting away with his nonsense because we still trusted him. The next bad incident that I can remember happened when I was in my senior year of college. My mom went to surprise him at work with lunch date, but when she got to his office, he wasn't there. She waited for him in the lobby, and when he returned, he had a woman on his arm. They were talking, laughing, chit-chatting, so they did not even see or acknowledge my mom until she stood up. She said Dad looked extremely embarrassed, and she did not stay to hear his explanation. But when he got home that night, he tried to explain that the woman was just a client. And sometimes he gets a little friendly with them and takes them out to lunch and such because it warms them up on the sale. So, what she was saying and saw was no big deal. My mom was not convinced of the story, though, and I think this was a pivotal moment for her. My mom told me she was suspicious even before that and went so far as to go through his phone. But all she found were work emails, text messages. She thought he was telling the truth, and it was seeing him with that woman that finally made her realize my dad might be having an affair. She told me all this over the phone. Also, she decided to hire a private investigator since her dad insisted on lying to her. She told the investigator to keep an eye on my father for a month and not tell her anything until that month was up. I should mention that at this time both Mike and I were adults. Mike had graduated high school and was pursuing his bachelor's at a local university, and I had already graduated with my bachelor's degree and was going for my master's, which was what my mom saw it fit to keep us abreast of the situation. That, and because Father was around less than ever, his excuse became more frequent. He was just also going out of town a lot for, quote, work. We were all she had, and I could tell she was feeling more and more lonely. Anyway, a month or so goes by, and I'm back home for summer break after my first year in my master's program, and Mom picks me up from the airport and tells me she has something to discuss with me and my brother. When we get home, we made dinner together, and while we were eating, she pulled out a manila envelope. She let me and my brother go through it. It was pictures of Dad with a strange woman going in and out of hotels, kissing in the car, and being in the airport together. It was so damning. The woman's name was Rebecca, and Dad had been seeing her secretly for a while. She was a client at one point, and the investigator found out she'd bought a house through an agency her dad worked at. So that's probably how they met. All those excuses he gave us about working were really about him going to see this woman. Mike and I were understandably furious, but we continued our anger for our mom's sake because she seemed absolutely heartbroken by it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce. I would have understood if she said yes. She said she was not sure. She just wanted to talk to him about it first. Well, that night, when Dad came home, Mom pulled him aside and told him she knew about his affair. I don't remember if she told him how she found out, and Mike and I stayed in a different room while they were talking, but at one point, we heard them screaming at each other. For about a week after, the situation in the house was so tense. Mom and Dad weren't really speaking to each other, and it felt like I was walking on eggshells around them. About a week later, my mom and dad sat us down and told us they were going to a couples therapy. He said he'd broken things off with Rebecca, and he and Mom were going to work to repair their marriage, and he said he also wanted to spend more time with us because he has wronged us a lot. We were weary at first, but we decided to give him a chance to do the right thing. He tried. He really did. He was home a lot more, and we spent the whole summer together. We rented out a lake house and spent 2 weeks there, and during that time, Mike and I brainstormed starting our own business with Dad once Mike graduated, and we were not sure exactly what we wanted to do yet. That would combine my business management degree and Mike's automotive engineering degree. But we tabled it and to figure it down to the road. Everything was going great until, 2 months later. It was the week before I had to go back to university for the last year of my master's program. I remember this day so vividly. Mike and I went out so I could grab some new towels and stuff from the dorm, and when we got back, Dad was home earlier than usual and he said he needs to talk. We sat down around the table. Mom was notably not around, and he said that she had gone out for some air. Then he told us that he'd spoken to Rebecca earlier, the lady that he had the affair with. She was pregnant. That's right. He not only slept with this woman, he was irresponsible enough to get her pregnant. She didn't want to get rid of the baby, so that was off the table. I asked him why he did not just forfeit his parental rights. He said he was not going to do that and abandon his own flesh and blood. Mike asked him where they left us, and he said after talking to Mom she wanted a divorce. My dad said he wanted to welcome his new kid into the family, and he expected us to have a relationship with our younger brother or sister. That was the moment I understood. My dad did not want to repair his broken marriage and family. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted our idyllic family life, and he wanted to go frolic about with his mistress. I told him he could walk off a cliff for all I cared. He was willing to abandon us all to go be with his other woman. I told him I did not want anything to do with his child, and he ruined our family, and I'd never forgive him for that ever. Mike tried to be a bit more charitable, and he asked Dad about the business we were supposed to build together. Dad said he believes Mike and I could handle it on our own. Well, he'd even given us everything we needed. He said he was giving Mom the house and whatever else she wanted because he did not feel like battling in court. He wanted to focus on raising his new kid just as well as he raised us. I was so disgusted. I could not listen to him anymore, so I just went to my room and called Mom to see where she was and if she was okay. The entire situation was so messed up. My dad did not even fight for us. He cared more about an underdeveloped fetus than he did about his own kids who were already here. It felt like he did not consider our feelings at all. Well, to be honest with you, it felt so bad when I had to leave home a week later. But Mike promised me he'd look after Mom, and I called her every day to check up on her, and at least her and her dad's divorce was amicable. He left her with the house, car, and all the money in their joint savings account, and he refused to pay alimony, which Mom said was fine. The kicker here is that he decided to write me and Mike out of his will, along with Mother. His rationale was that we were adults and could make it on our own. His new family and his newborn needed him more than we did, so yeah, he said it's just like that, his new family. I could not be more disgusted with him. Mike and I both agreed to have no contact with him, and honestly, his betrayal stung for a long time. But eventually, we got used to not having him around. Mike and Mom came out to see me walking across the stage to get my master's degree and helped me pay back up my dorm. We made it a point to stick together from then on. Mike and I are both established now and make our own money. We've done well for ourselves. About 5 years after the divorce, my mom met Derek, a nice southern guy who frequented the gym the same times and days as her. I was a little apprehensive at first, but I think I was just being aloof because I simply did not want to see my mom get hurt and heartbroken again. But Derek is a nice guy. He works in accounting, takes good care of himself and my mom, and is respectful to me and Michael. Mom also seems to like him a lot. It's nice to see her allow herself to be loved after going through such a horrible, heartbreaking divorce, and, well, I'm happy for her. She and Derek have spent the last 2 years jet-setting around the world whenever she has time off, and so does he. They've been to way more countries than I have now. Mom always sends me pictures of them going to landmarks and cafes and whatnot, and they're engaged now and planning a wedding for later this year. I thought at this point it would be safe to say we'd finally gotten over what happened with Dad, but boy was I wrong. One day last week, I got a call from a strange number, which was not unusual for me now with my line of work. I pick it up. It's my father. He begged me not to hang up on him and said he just needs to talk. He told me he'd gotten into some issues and needs my help. And he wanted to meet with Mike and me to talk, and he said I did not have to give him an answer then and there, that I should talk it over with Mike and send him my answer once we decided, even if the answer was no. I was kind of shaken up by the call, so I called my mom to tell her what happened, and she was surprised that my dad had the audacity to ask us for help after abandoning us. I asked her if I should just ignore him, and she said I should talk it over with Mike first and see what he thinks, but she'd support whatever decision we made since he was still our father, whether we liked it or not. Mike was on the road doing deliveries, so I did not get to see him until the next day. He said that he'd gotten a call from a strange number too, but he was at a rest stop grabbing lunch, so he missed it, and we confirmed that it was indeed our dad. I gave him a rundown of what happened the day before, and he said Dad must be in some serious trouble and super desperate if he was coming to us for help. He wrote us out of his will for Christ's sake. Why did he think that we would help him? Because we were just sharing the same genetics? Mike stayed silent for a while, then he said that we should agree to meet with him. It wasn't because he had a desire to help our father. He was curious about what kind of nonsense his dad has gotten himself into, and I have to admit I was feeling morbidly curious too. Also, our dad has a lot of connections and powerful friends, so it must be something super juicy. We were both wondering if it had anything to do with his mistress, Rebecca, and our half-sibling, whose name I still don't even know. So, we decided to call him back. I put him on speaker and said we'd meet him at a cafe in town on Sunday, and I also told him he'd better come alone or we'd get up and leave. I don't want to see his mistress or his child. He agreed and said that we can meet up for lunch. So, Sunday is tomorrow. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. It feels a little icky that I have not seen or heard from my dad in 10 years, and he calls us up out of the blue not to check up on us, but to beg for help. I spoke to my mom, and she said she was secretly hoping we'd agree to meet him because she was curious about what he wanted. I don't think I'm going to rest easy tonight. There's a lot I want to say to my dad about what he did to us and what he did to my mom. Hopefully tomorrow won't devolve into a screaming match. Wish us luck. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So I have 3 updates for you guys today, and wow, we're about to learn a lot in update number 1. If you guys are new to the channel and you want daily videos, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button and hit those bell notification icons so it alerts you when I upload. Here is your first update. So, our meeting with Dad was yesterday, and boy was it something. When my brother and I got to the cafe, we met him there, and he looked pretty much the same as I remembered him, except a little grayer and a lot more wrinkly. When we sat down, he called the waiter over by name to take our orders, and he asked us how we've been. Mike gave a charitable reply and told him that he'd know that how we were if he ever made an effort to check up on us. And I said he should not pretend to care now. I could tell my words stung a bit, and I'm glad that they did. Anyways, he got right into the reason he called. About a year after the divorce from my mom, he married Rebecca. This was after they welcomed their baby into the world. His name is Jack. Dad actually showed us pictures of him. It's a cute kid, But as soon as I saw the pictures, I knew exactly where this was going. Dad said 6 months ago a strange guy named Frank showed up at his office looking for Rebecca. The Frank person said he heard Rebecca hangs around this office sometimes. Dad asked him who the hell was he. He said he was an old friend who was revisiting the area. Well, Dad said when he got back home that evening, he asked Rebecca who Frank was, and she looked really nervous and said he was a friend of hers from high school. Dad was inclined to believe her until Jack, their son, came into the room. That's when he realized something was terribly off. Now, I have no idea who this Frank person is, but I can tell you for a fact that Jack looks absolutely nothing like my dad. Both my dad and Rebecca have brown hair. In fact, my dad's hair is light brown that's almost blonde. This kid has jet black hair and thick eyebrows. He looks Italian. Anyways, my dad said he did not push the issue any further. Instead, he tracked down Frank on his own and asked to meet with him. That's when he found out that Rebecca and Frank used to date, and they were seeing each other around the same time she and Dad were seeing each other. The real reason Frank came into town was that one of his friends who live in the area said he saw a kid who looked just like him with a woman who looked like someone he used to date. So, he came to find Rebecca. Dad showed him pictures of Jack, and the kid is an absolute spitting image of Frank. Armed with this information, Dad goes home and confronts Rebecca, asking her exactly what her relationship with Frank is. Well, she finally confesses, and said they used to date, yes, but it was before she and her dad met. Well, Dad did not believe her and asked for a paternity test, and she gets mad and starts accusing him of emotional abuse. Dad told her that her freaking out was an admission of guilt, and if she truly was not seeing Frank as she said, then she should have no problem to worry about. That's when I interjected and asked my dad why he had not realized this sooner. The kid looked nothing like him. He said he thought about it and thought it was just a weird coincidence because genetics are strange sometimes. Anyways, they went and did the paternity test, and it turned out the shocker. Jack is not my dad's kid. He immediately told Rebecca he wants a divorce, and she starts yelling and screaming, saying she could not just abandon them. Ha! Yeah, right, if she only knew. Even if Jack was not biologically his, he was the only father this kid knew. Dad told her she needs to find her kid's real father and ask him to step up. Now they're embroiled in the most bitter divorce proceeding ever, and Rebecca's trying to take literally everything Dad owns. The house he bought for them, all his assets, even the ones in his offshore account. She's claiming that without his financial support, she and Jack would end up destitute. So, after hearing all that, I asked him, what's any of this have to do with us? He has all the money and connections he needs to get a good lawyer. Why would he even need our help? He said he's trying to build a case against her and wants us to sign some letters saying he's helping us with a business. That way, she cannot come after his liquid assets because they would technically be tied up in something else, and I don't know, it was confusing, and he said if we helped him out with this one little favor, he'd help us start that business we always wanted. At one point, Mike got up and said he'd heard enough and he'd be willing for me in the car. I can only shake my head, and Dad begged me to at least think about it and gave me a card with his number. The drive home was quiet, but I could tell Mike was pretty mad. Well, that's where we are now, guys. I'm waiting for him to cool off so we can sit down and have a proper talk. But I'll be sure to update again when we do. Update number 2. So, Mike and I spoke. He was so mad because he remembered how much starting a business meant to him because it was something we planned to do as a family. But Dad just walked out and left us high and dry to figure it out on our own when his guidance and connections would have been so invaluable. I failed to mention that in this previous update, Mike and I have already had a successful business. It's a trucking company and we've been running it for years now. We started off small because we were only able to buy one truck, and it was a bit run down. But Mike is super good with automotive repair, and he got that thing running like a dream. It handled all the back-off-house stuff with clients, contracts, and whatnot. Our company kinda blew up over the pandemic when the truckers were in huge demand. Mike used to do all the driving back then, but after a huge boost in business, we were able to hire some drivers and buy most trucks. Now, we have a fleet of almost 100 trucks of different size, shapes, and functions. So, we bought an office space and a warehouse where we would handle repairs, and Mike has also gotten so good at fixing trucks that he gets business from other trunk companies. He's also mentoring some of our drivers, so they'll be able to do repairs too. It's always super busy and sometimes stressful, but we're making the most of it. We were able to give our workers a fair wage and benefits and still take home a good salary. Mike and I also bought a property with 2 houses and a shared yard, so we technically live together but have our own space. Mom sold our childhood home and moved about a half-hour away with Derek. We still see her, though, at least 3 times a month. What I'm saying here is that we really don't need our dad anymore. We've filled in the space he's left behind when he ran off with his mistress, and now there's nothing for him to come back to. After talking with Mike, we called our dad and explained all this to him. We told him that we don't like that he abandoned us, and we are going to abandon him now. He's on his own. He said he wished things could have been different and that he never wanted to abandon us, but after Mom asked for a divorce, he felt like it would have been imposing to stick around and try to have a relationship with us since we were obviously taking her side. I told it had nothing to do with sides and everything to do what was right and what was wrong. And what he did to our mother was wrong. He made his choice and now he has to face the consequences, and I explained to him that Mom had moved on. I emphasized what a great guy Derek was, how well he took care of Mom, and that they were getting married in the fall. He did not seem to take too kindly to that and said it seemed like we'd all forgotten about him. So, I told him I don't know why he thought we would help him after everything he's done. We ended the conversation there. If I'm lucky, I'll never hear from him again. He really had the audacity in reaching out after what he did. So, let me know, guys. Should we have helped bailed my father out or left him on his own for his own demise? Wow. So this story had a twist at the end. I'll be honest with you guys, I was reading through almost every comment on this one because they were juicy. People were arguing left and right. But I will say, I have to lean towards the side that agrees with OP and his brother by saying, you know what, we're not going to help you, Dad. You abandoned us, you had a mistress, you got her pregnant, you treated our mom like crap. But there was a large amount of commenters that were saying, at the end of the day, he's your father and he needed your help and you guys just turned him down. You should always try to fix family ties if you have the ability to do it. Then the other commenters were arguing, saying, no, the father's just trying to take advantage of his family because now he needs them. But when they needed him, he was nowhere to be found. So I would like to know your take on this story. It was definitely a drama, a family drama that had a lot in it. So drop your opinion. I'll see you guys in the comment section. I can't wait to discuss this one with you guys. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. We do stories like this every single day. I hope to see you tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.